Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to look at Star Wars vs. 40k. This is going to be Episode 8, Warriors. Now, last time around, we jumped into apparently a canon battle in Star Wars The Clone War, which I got nothing on. I started watching Clone Wars. I was like, oh, this is fun, and then I never finished the first season. I don't know why. I didn't mind it. It was fun. No idea why I stopped. So I have literally no idea about this. Apparently it's all canon, and they're just, I think the term is fucking it up in the best possible way. So this is going to be fun. You guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original channel. Hit it up. Are you done? Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Oh, also, if you happen to see me on TikTok, just got to say, that's still the guy impersonating me. I'm not on TikTok. I don't know why that's a thing. It's weird. Let's get started. Oh, we're going to the clone's homeworld. I think Camino? I could be mistaken. It's been a long time. We're going straight from the movie on this one. Still one of the cooler scenes.
We expect great things from you.
Ready for deployment in as few as 10 years.
You are each a piece of a whole person.
Oh, sorry. For some reason, the distortion made it hard to hear.
Human army, 1,000,000 strong.
We have been born into dangerous times.
Oh, I think that's the Bad Batch? I'll be honest, I don't know anything about them.
Republic,
I heard they're really cool.
to defend.
Did he just lift a freaking ship?
if need be.
Goddamn! And he walked away from the explosion.
Something truly special.
Dude? Oh, I wonder if these are actually from the episodes relevant to this specific section of the Clone Wars. Again, I don't know nearly enough about this to say anything.
And most importantly, your brothers.
Also, there's a voice in the background. Just with the distortion, the music, I cannot understand what's saying. Although I'm assuming it's something that if I had watched the Clone Wars, I'd recognize it from somewhere else. And I wouldn't need to hear it so much as recognize it and understand the reference. Okay, that is cool. That is legitimately cool. Underside docking of those ships. That actually is really neat. Episodes 8, Warriors. Not the V2. So again, this is definitely the second version of it.
Can you stop it? Asked General Skywalker.
What?
Well, I can try, Echo said, hesitance ringing from
Oh. This is interesting. Not because of the scene itself, and I actually recognize him from Bad Batch just because I've seen the images, but more importantly, because it does show one really important thing. This is happening still further back in the timeline, because I wasn't entirely sure how far into this specific interaction with 40k came. We know that Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi... Nope, I'm pretty sure Skywalker was at... I know Kenobi was at the battle in space where the Star Wars side got wiped out much later on. I thought Anakin was there as well. If I'm not wrong, which it's me, it's entirely possible. This would mean that this is happening before what I thought was his first encounter. So he actually encountered less-ish hostile 40k side before running into the, oh my god, our entire armada just got fucked side. That's going to make the interactions a lot more nuanced then.
his every syllable, though duty drove him forward in the attempt. The Jedi wasted no time, unfolding his arms and turning to leave the small, brightly lit
Clone
comm
with
vault.
short hair.
General, where are you going? Rex asked as Anakin began to run. If you can't stop the detonation, perhaps Trench can.
What?
But Echo had no time to think about the General. He would take care of himself.
Something I would
Time
probably
was
know if I
limited.
watched
Time
Clone
was
Wars.
slipping by,
Need to catch
and
up.
he needed to figure out the sequence before the planet cracker went off. He found that the 328 data locks and 48,000 authentication gates were almost trivial to slice through, especially given the method and origin of his integrated equipment.
What?
It wasn't long before he had
Again,
access,
I would know more if I knew
reaching
canon.
out to seize and begin decrypting the code file. But suddenly, it was gone.
What?
Everything was gone.
Because he made
But
contact
this
here.
blankness, this placidity only lasted for a fraction of a second, and then pain.
Oh, what's it going to look like from his side?
Echo writhed, yet could not move, screamed, and yet felt his lips only tremble, his voice sealed. Something was attacking him, attacking his mind. It drove deep into him while at the same time surrounding his every thought and access, both to the ship computer and
Oh, that's
to
a
his
terrifying
own
picture.
body. He resisted, He struggled, but it was like wrestling with a thorn bush. He had no idea how to even really fight, and every attempt at
Disconnect.
defense he
I'm not sure you
raised
can.
seemed as liable to hurt himself as aid his struggle.
Oh, sorry. I like this one little point right here saying that he can't really fight back. And if he does it too hard, he'll hurt himself, which is like, it would seem as a perfectly passable line. It's like, okay, well, he would hurt himself. What does that mean? Is what I would say, except in the previous episode, they showed someone struggling to the point where they tore themselves apart. And it was explicit that if you struggle too much, that will literally mean you are doing that to yourself. So this is actually one of those moments where it's not a huge thing. On its own, it would be fine. It's a throw out line. It's like, okay, if I fight too much, I'm hurt. You don't really know what that means, but it works. Here, though, because we've already seen what that means in a very practiced way, that you will literally tear yourself apart, struggling to the point where your mind frays and you're basically mush. It's nice to see that because they're making, it's not even a reference, but we have context for something that wouldn't have had context anyways because of previous events. That's neat. And we're also seeing someone take a completely different path on it. Was that intentional? Honestly, I don't know. And I wouldn't even say it is because it's just a more random happenstance that just happens to work out really damn well.
Meanwhile, whatever was attacking was almost
Tech priest.
ignoring him, sifting through his thoughts like a
Yep.
steel rake cutting lines in the mud. It was exposing him, reading him, drinking him in like a spider drinks in the insides of an insect.
Pretty
Without
accurate,
warning,
too.
It paused, and Echo sagged as much as he was able, grateful for the brief respite, though his body was still held rigid and unresponsive.
And Anakin already
Then,
left before this
a
happened, too, so
question.
he's not aware.
No, a command, a compulsion. Identify yourself. Echo did not resist nor comply, having still been considering whether or not to inform this entity of anything, when it decided for him. Again, pain like Echo had never known coursed through him, cutting from the outermost layer of his superficial self to the deepest part of what he could call himself. The pain ceased, and the order came again.
Lord for the
Echo,
Mechanicus.
my name is Echo, and if you're not a separatist, then I am not your enemy.
Well,
He yelled into
that's
the
not entirely
void
true.
which surrounded him. The pain did not return. Distantly, he could hear the voice of Mace Windu calling to him, asking him for the codes.
Oh, okay. So Windu's here again. This would be something I would know if I was up on canon. I'm not sure who's here, but the fact that it's Windu means it's another human Jedi. That I honestly don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. On the one hand, human, way better than the other options when it comes to 40K, because anything slightly less than perfectly normal human, I mean, you can make a lot of arguments that they're all abhumans, and frankly, with some of the crazy-ass mutations that they put up with, you can make a lot of arguments for that. It's like, we have a very high mutant population. Okay. Would it be right or even feasible? No, but honestly, considering how many of them can actually crossbreed, that actually would be an argument you can make, considering you can't do that between different species with viable offering. And that would be a thing that happens in Star Wars. So I'm going to drop this line of thought because it goes way crazy and way too deep, way too fast. But more importantly, on the one hand, human. On the other hand, their equivalent of a psyker. That always makes you trigger happy because psychers don't mess around, man. This could go either really good or really bad, but it's not the absolute worst way of a non-human Jedi, which would be a psyker and non-human, so they just, no. Ooh,
But he
I like the
still
setup.
couldn't move or even feel his physical body. I am Brother Taslian of the Crimson Razes chapter of the Adeptus
Ah, yes, the
Astartes,
not a tech priest.
said a voice which seemed at once to come from all around Echo and from within him as well. Though the clone could not blink,
I have
he
no
felt
idea
as
where this
though
art's
he
from.
must have, as the form of a man appeared standing before him. He was a human, a little taller than Echo himself was. He had dusky skin and clear brown eyes. His expression was stern, yet not unkind. His face, exposed hands and feet, were flawless, with smooth
Wait. Not the art, but it almost sounds like he's looking at a mental projection of Brother Taslian? It's weird to me because he's being described in perfectly human terms. Not mechanical, but skin, flawless hands, not Dendrites everywhere, not I am more machine than man, not, okay, this is a walking piece of body horror, but human. I would have really thought the mental projection he would have used would have been something way more mechanical, but in a human form, but mechanical. I wonder if this is, and I know I'm deep diving way too much on this right now, but I'm not going to do it because it's actually really fascinating to me. Is this something he's doing for Echo's benefit? To say, hey, I am human. Fellow human, how are you today? Or is this actually how he views himself? Because a huge thing about the Mechanicus in general is even though their bodies are weak, their flesh is weak, replace it with machinery, go machine crazy body horror, the concept is still humanity itself is very much the important fact there. And maybe the mental humanity is more important than the physical humanity, which I think gets lost eventually, but that would actually be an interesting take if he's one of the people who goes like, my inner self is still perfectly human, where everything else, fuck it, I don't care, give me what works. I don't know. I don't know which way this is going. It's just one of those interesting ways. I could see the mentality going either way. Neat.
Skin and youthful features. He wore red robes, the linings of which were spoked and colored yellow like the outer ends of golden cogs. Aside from his odd attire, the man seemed different in just one other way. The air around him seemed off. Perhaps it was the way he stood, or the unusual depth in his clear eyes, but he gave the impression of a false thing, like an acklay having been crammed into the skin and robes of a Jawa. Tell me more of whom you fight for, and you may yet survive to tell your republic that their time has come to an end.
God damn. Meanwhile, back at the ranch. And yeah, that's definitely a hostile interaction. But not the worst possible
Brother
one.
Arachnus was keeping watch, and it was a good thing, too. All of the others who should be taking up the duty were only armed with meager sidearms. Pathetic! They would never react as quickly and with as much range as he could with his bolter.
Okay, on the one hand, yeah, I get it. He's a big Bolter fan, too. He proved it. 3, I'm just looking at this right here and thinking, if I tried to freehand this on a model, even if it was the night size and I had more room and a brush that was really good, I could not do that. Hell, if you gave me a stencil, I'd fuck that shit up. That is incredibly detailed. Really damn cool, though. Yeah, I think... And this is more just Arachnus's character... Aratus? I cannot do names. I like how he's pushing off the entire, yeah, we're going to do the thing. We're going to do the bolters. But also, you're sitting here going, why do I have a feeling that as much as the last episode gave him that moment of, see, I'm right, this episode is going to show him the exact opposite of, see, Mealy still has a place, because it just seems like there's an element of hubris here. And usually whenever you show any character with hubris, there's 2 ways you teach it. 1, they're right and you find out why, or 2, they're wrong and you find out why. Last time around we had they're right. I'm assuming this time around it's going to be the other way.
It was simply a fact. A fact he demonstrated when the hatch into the bridge opened wide, a man in black robes running in. The intruder seemed shocked by what he saw, that being Brother Arachnus and his fire team all assembled around Brother Taslion,
that is
who was
terrifying.
crouching atop the odd command throne.
Okay. Yeah, this looks like original art. I could be mistaken, but you don't see very many tech priests. Sorry, I keep forgetting he's actually still a space marine. Oh, that is all kinds of fucked up. How is it that he looks even creepier than some of the full-on tech priests? He looks less human than Call. And I do mean the figure where there's very little human left on that thing. Oh my god. It is disturbing. He even has the hammer, or the clamp, or whatever the hell that thing is. And then just all around, and the incredibly detailed figurine on the freaking Greaves. That'd be Greaves at the boot. I actually don't know which piece of this. Beautiful art, but also, oh my god, this is terrifying.
Spider like Xeno had been using earlier. His mechadendrites poured over the whole apparatus like a stream of steel.
Oh, there's art in there somewhere.
The deceased form of the alien which had given its life to delay.
Yep, this is definitely canon, at least to the show.
A vicious smile slid onto Brother Arachnus' hidden face, but not before he pulled the trigger of his bolter. The man could not run, could not dodge. He held some kind of cylindrical device in his hand, but the shot was coming too quickly to act.
Ooh, I know I'm about to find out, but this is something I was actually really looking forward to. What do we actually finally get to see happens when a mass reactive shell meets a lightsaber? Because lightsabers usually reflect lasers, but this isn't a laser. This is a physical interaction. This I'm going to be curious about.
Activated.
Granted, they could probably just force
And then
push it.
Brother Arachnus watched as the stranger seemed to flinch even before the bolt shell had fully left the barrel, making a gesture with his left hand as he dodged right.
Oh.
But it wouldn't matter. Arachnus was sure of it, a surety he lost as he watched the air-splittingly fast bolts of his gun twist away from their intended target.
He's not doing the
as if
lightsaber against
suddenly
it. Smart
subjected
move.
to concentrated gale force winds. At the sight of this blasphemous
Psyker.
phenomenon, this intolerable defiance of the Emperor's will, a name, an identification rose to his lips.
Psyker?
He spoke it, no, screamed it.
Oh, what do you know
before
about
he
Jedi?
even
No,
knew
he
what
wouldn't,
was
but detectives
saying,
might.
or even precisely why. But none doubted his instinct or claim when he did, and he was glad for it was true. Witch!
Oh,
Brother Arachnus
that works too.
roared. The man was already fleeing at unnatural speed back the way he came.
Yeah.
He activated a blue sword of incandescent light and threw it, sending it in an arc to strike a nearby control panel. Before another breath could even be drawn, Brother Hastus, wielding his power sword in both hands, launched himself clean through the closing gap in the doorway, barely clearing it before
Oh,
it
so we get the one-on-one
slammed
fight. Can we actually
shut.
see it this time?
Other members of the fire team moved to open the door, but found its esoteric mechanisms unresponsive. Seeing no other choice, Arachnus turned to his brother.
Star Wars, the one universe where OSHA violations don't actually matter, because real life, if something's fucked up to the point where it's shot and broken, you should probably leave it open so you can get out. Star Wars, if something's broken, it locks automatically and closes. Oh, man. I'm just going to say it's a spaceship protocol and leave it at that.
Awaken from your reverie. We had an intruder. Slowly, Tassian's helmed head turned to face Brother Arachnus and received a report on what had just happened. That was probably one of the Jedi. Brother Tassian
Okay, so he did
said.
find out about it.
Jedi? Arachnus repeated. His voice seemed to snap Brother Tassian back to the immediate moment, and he
I know this is more canon art, not actually related to the show itself, but goddamn, that is the largest power pack I've seen everywhere. I don't just mean anywhere in 40K, I mean ever. This is the largest power pack I've seen. It's bigger than him. And they already have some pretty damn huge chunk of power packs, and this is... I kind of want a model for this and call it some kind of... You know what? If they had made this a special character model with an oversized backpack, maybe for the Iron Fists, this would have been awesome. This literally sounds like a missed opportunity on Warhammer side. This is kind of cool.
he shook his head gently. Call your man back.
What? Wait, he told him to come back? Why? I don't think it's... What? Not the order I was expecting.
Anakin was running, and one of those things from inside the bridge was chasing. What were they? New
Terrifying as
droids?
shit?
New separatists? He would have guessed not from the sight of Admiral Trench's still smoking body.
Oh, that was an
but
admiral?
they didn't seem to be discriminating between who they targeted with those slug throwers, or were they high-powered grenade launchers? Anakin
Really? He's using a mechadendrite. I'm not even surprised. It seems like some kind of joke. It's like, I got a mechadendrite. Now I have all the guns. Oh my god. It's so absolutely ridiculous. I absolutely love this. Absolutely even.
wasn't sure, but what he was sure
Random
of was
power
that the
fist.
one chasing him, somehow keeping pace with him, was not using a gun of his own. Both of his hands clamped around a large, broad blade. Taking a gamble, Anakin spun to meet his adversary. He was gone. Something Anakin knew to be an illusion of some sort, as he had felt the being's loping, hammering footfalls only just prior.
Oh.
Still, canny though he was, if it had not been for his skill and precognition, he would have fallen victim to Hastus's ploy, the massive Marine having read Anakin's intention to turn about in his movement and leapt smoothly and quickly to the right,
using a space wolf.
away from the Jedi's sweeping line of sight. From there, he coiled for an instant, absorbing all the force of his sudden leap and converting it into the power he used to fuel a lunging thrust. Normally, most enemies would be too stunned by the sudden vanishing of their pursuer to react appropriately to the second of time they had before his blade
Interesting artist, Space Wolf, on a definitely loyalist Marine. Huh.
met their chest, but not Anakin.
Ooh.
Reacting instinctively, moving before his eyes ever connected with the hurtling form of the Astartes, Anakin backstepped out of the path of the blade's edge and put his gamble to the test. He whipped his radiant blue saber out, watching in mild appreciation as the huge warrior before him both halted his considerable momentum and swept his sword in to intercept Anakin's swipe with a slash of his own.
Ooh, now this... I thought I was looking forward to just seeing what happened to Star Wars lightsabers versus mass reactive shells. We missed that. But now we actually get to see a flat out what happens when a lightsaber meets a freaking power sword. Or maybe a chain blade. I'm actually not sure which one. It sounded like a glaive. It might be a power version. Or it could just be a large sword. I think they might do that too. Yeah.
Clearly both expected their swords to overcome the other.
Yeah.
And as lightsaber met power field, both were proven wrong. The energy field containing the plasma and radiation which composed the lightsaber and the power field which gave the power sword its name repulsed violently when they met.
Ooh.
The field sparking and filling the air with the smell of ozone and burning metal.
So similar to two
while the saber
lightsabers hitting.
seemed to bend ever so slightly as it resisted the focused edge of the enemy weapon.
Oh.
But the power sword did bear one advantage over the saber.
It's physical?
It was heavy. Very heavy.
Yeah.
The Marine roared like a beast, letting the sound be loosed through his helmet speakers as he twisted his torso, completing the follow-through on his swing and sending Anakin almost flying. No sooner had the Jedi managed to catch himself and balance his footing before the Astartes was on him again, aggressively pursuing, pushing his enhanced physiology to allow the Jedi no moments of rest.
Dude. Sorry, I just need a second to I'm having a fanboy moment, an absolute and utter fanboy moment right now. I like this. Specifically because in how they're talking about things. Okay, full disclosure. Right now we're doing something in literature that is being done well, but I personally don't like. We've moved from specific narrators of who's speaking. Like early on when we had Echo, we had it from his perspective, what he saw, what he perceived. And then we went over to the sergeant and what he saw. But right now in this fight, we started with Anakin, but we're also moving into Haslian. Sorry, not Haslian. I cannot remember his name. Well, I suck at him, whatever his name. But we're getting both the Space Marine and Anakin, and we're going back and forth on who's doing it individual through paragraphs, not sections, not chapters, but paragraph to paragraph. And it's being done well. But I can't stand this writing style. I don't like jumping around so much when we're not in a third person point of view. Because so far we've been very much focused on individual characters as the speaking premise, not first person. That would be way more of a jump from first to third. But we're very much in a third person attached. Not omniscient, but very damn close. Just switching viewpoint characters who are basically falling over the shoulder is awkward for me. And I personally don't like it. That said, that's my personal take, but it's being done well, so I'm even enjoying it, which is awkward. Like when you find someone who's writing in second person, you can actually deal with it. If you don't know what I mean by talking in second person, don't. Just don't.
But Anakin made him pay for that mindless aggression.
Ooh.
Against a normal opponent, the massive warrior may well have overwhelmed them with his furious, reckless attacks.
But
Anakin had been fighting against the Sage Ventress long enough to be well versed in how to counter that tactic. And despite the unnatural speed of the Astartes he faced, he was wielding just one blade, not two. And he was all speed, all power. Anakin swayed, allowing the sparking power sword to slide.
okay, I love the image they chose right here. Just that freaking smug look. Also, he's holding the lightsaber in a fencer stance. Don't think I've ever seen someone do that. I mean, it makes sense he would eventually do it that way, but just,
Inches away from his body as he struck with his own weapon. The Jedi
Oh,
learned
is this
then
custom
that
art?
While the power
It
sword
is.
could repel a lightsaber, the armor of these new warriors could not. Anakin
is that
leapt
teeth?
back, kicking off of the chest of the enemy, and was not pursued, drawing his saber away from the scorched helmet of the Marine.
Oh, it is.
Anakin had thought that maneuver would not be enough, had thought it was too little, too late. But when the warrior reached up and pulled away his smoking helmet, he realized this was somehow not the case. From his jaw to his now missing ear, the man had clearly suffered direct contact from the Jedi's weapon. His teeth were exposed on the left side of his face, some burnt away, many still glowing bright orange, as was the remnant of his cheekbone and the portion of exposed skull near where his ear used to be.
Okay. I love the smug look. I love how you can see him lunging under it, getting behind the guard, so even if he pulls it back, it would still hit his head, but it wouldn't be the blade doing it. And I love seeing how he's cutting off the helmet and taking off the cheek. Oh, it's like, But why did you have to go so goddamn real? Like, get an artist who's actually competent enough at physiology to show what's being pulled back layer by layer. I am squeamish. This is difficult.
Yet this warrior did not reach
Should've
up
waited
in
possibly
pain
image
or
away.
horror, did not flinch or turn away from the agony of his injuries, and did not sway or seem in any way intoxicated. His eyes, bright green and piercing, never left Anakin as he dropped his smoking helmet to the ground and spread his legs, taking up a wide stance as both his hands
It's
took
just a
the
flesh
haft
wound.
of his power sword in a trained grip. "Trust me, friend," Anakin said as he swept his saber into several quick flourishes, taking up a stance of his own. "You do not want to do this." The warrior
No, he really
seemed
does.
to not understand him, something Anakin had fully expected. He found himself unexpectedly longing for C-3PO's unsolicited interjections, especially as the warrior gave a
Sorry, it's not actually a funny line. This is just more my own personal humor right here. Someone wanting C-3PO in a scene. I love the meme that C-3PO is just that nosy, nebby person who's just going to get in your face like, I am helpful. Hi, how can I help you today? I am the best possible choice you can make. Ha 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 ha. And the one time he's not there is the one time they want him. It's more of just an ironic section right now that I just find this kind of commentary absolutely hilarious because it turns on the canon trope and the also very much fanon trope that C-3PO is in the waste of time slot, but also you kind of like him, but at the same time, it's like that friend who's a friend, but also like, yeah. Or what also is known as what I am in a friend group, but still just, I like that they put it out there. It's just neat.
single short nod and dashed forward. Anakin met his charge with a countercharge, sliding into his favored lightsaber form.
But
He had been playing it defensively before, much like his master would have done, allowing the enemy to create his own openings and taking advantage of them once discovered. But that had never been Anakin's style. No, he preferred to create his own openings, to dominate his opponent with overwhelming power.
wow, never would have guessed
This
that.
was a mistake. For in engaging Brother Hastus in this manner, Anakin had removed himself from the center of his advantage as a Jedi, precognition and agility, and had moved into realms in which the Astartes held nearly all the cards.
And this is one of those moments where I'm going to go back to how there's shifting viewpoints. For a good bit there, we were in Anakin's headspace. We were even getting his thoughts on a matter, and it's like how he wanted C-3PO there. But then talking about how it's a mistake, that's not something Anakin would know. That's a third-person narration that is omnipotent that you would only know if you're looking at it from the outside. So again, third-person omnipotent. That is information we are being given as the audience without any viewpoint character filtering it. I'm personally against this just because, one, it's still moving around, so we have a third person we're looking at right here. We've gone from just the Space Marine to just Anakin to having both of them. And now them and the third person over the shoulder is now talking on their own premise. Again, it's just one of those things that bugs me. I know it's not badly done, but it's just more of a personal writing thing. It's like when you use the similar words so many times in a paragraph. You can do it. It's fine. But I'm just going to sit there going, this is fine. Again, it's a personal thing. That said, it's being done well. It's being done in such a way that we get the important part here. We're being told what's about to happen before it happens in a way so that it makes sense when we see it. Because if we just show he's fast, but now he's not as fast, he's not agility, but he's not doing this. There's a lot of ways this can work. And this isn't a bad way to deliver the information to us, but I just don't like it because it jumps around for who's talking. And it takes that second of, here's what's happening. Here's what he doesn't know. It's the narrator interjecting in a place where it didn't really need it. We could have just had a moment of him failing and then realizing what's going on. Or then switching over, because we already have the established two sides, to the battle brother and saying, he changed his style. I can advantage this. And then he would understand what's going on because Anakin might not quite yet. Instead, we're going third person omnipotent, showing this is why it's wrong, this is how it works differently, and this is why it's going to fuck up. Again, it's being done well. I'm not big on jumping characterization within a section.
They clashed like a spike of ice meeting a tsunami, but not one composed of salty, chilled water. The wave which crashed over the determined pinnacle of Anakin's assault was made of molten, burning metal, and though he resisted mightily, Anakin found himself overcome.
He's not as strong
He
as a
felt
space
all
marine.
the air rush out of his lungs as he was carried into the wall, managing to keep his saber up, his back now braced against the steel of the ship. Brother Hastis
Also, this is completely unrelated, but note to self, since we're looking at Grey Knight, finally pick up the freaking Grey Knight base model so I can actually do that patrol of them. I've got the rest of the stuff where I just need a freaking patrol unit just to play a small game. I have everything else. I have a bunch of things to fill out every unit slot except for freaking troops. Why haven't I done that? Just remember, I need to remind myself. If you're watching this later on and I haven't done, just leave a comment saying, hey, Airier, remember to buy the freaking troops. Because I need to. Just gotta remind myself somehow, and I keep forgetting.
kept his wide stance as he laid on even more pressure, pinning the Jedi by the sheer force of his own two-handed slash. Anakin gasped, trying to pull air back into himself, trying to keep himself from being sliced in half by the unreal strength of the warrior who pinned.
Okay, this is actually just me going back on the art. I know this is probably not the canon art because it's a different style than what we saw I keep saying canon art. The specifically created art for this fan fiction piece, for this video came up. I just like the style. I like when you see the rough draft behind it and the colorization added to it. It's very unpolished, but it shows the initial thought process for each and every line and how they were created. I just like this almost dirty, messy look to it. Which also is why I kind of like some of the sketches Andy Warhol did. He does that a lot. It's actually very similar.
Pinned him. His saber was shrieking, the containment field bending as it was braced against the power field. He could feel the heat, could smell the burning of his robes, of the skin around his good hand. Wrecking time!
What?
The deep call was followed by a sudden jerk as the Space Marine was thrown
I wish I watched more of
this
this series.
hitting the wall opposite them heavily. The Astartes whipped his sword out to catch the new attacker with its lethal edge, but failed to land a solid strike, leaving only a deep, bleeding furrow in Wrecker's chest. The huge clone didn't even seem to notice, arms extending to catch his DC-17M rifle, which had been tossed to him by his sergeant, and began to unload into the hostile he had pulled off of the general. The Marine hit the wall hard, but didn't hesitate either, rebounding off of it instantly, only pulled...
I'd like to point out, with all the armor a freaking Space Marine wears, the fact that he can move him and is not in any way force sensitive or not throwing around some kind of freaking power... How strong is this guy? I'm assuming the answer is yes. Because that's impressive.
Pulled up short by Wrecker's sudden volley of near point-blank fire. Still, not one shot could land on Hastis's armor, the Marine using the flat of his power sword to rapidly swipe away at the incoming blaster bolts.
He's pulling a Jedi move.
Anakin had fallen to his knees the instant he could, dropping his saber and cupping his burned hand as he dragged a long breath into his flattened
There's a joke
lungs.
in there about Anakin burning.
Captain Rex was there in moments, helping Anakin to his feet as Sergeant Hunter gingerly retrieved the General's cooling lightsaber. "General, are you all right?" asked Rex. Anakin coughed.
I'm sorry, his lightsaber was doing what? Sorry, I don't think I can imagine or even remember a single time any lightsaber that was deactivated was ever described as cooling. It's, in terms of just what the fuck, I love this because it does something in a very small sentence that does hammer home that previous confrontation. That there was a functional power gap between them because it's showing that a power sword and a lightsaber are basically the same thing, but the power sword has a base of physicality to work off of, where the lightsaber itself is just ultra compact and just has the power field self-contained. But the downside here is having to contain that lightsaber presence against another lightsaber. There's other weapons that technically have similarities, but whatever. Just, you don't have as much physical force between them until you have people doing force power, so that's different. Here, though, because there was a physical aspect to it, making the lightsaber bend around it but not breaking, it's overloading the actual lightsaber. So you can see it literally heating up, and just saying that it did it is such a cool little detail because it's bringing back those previous references of how it was struggling, how the containment field was nearly breaking and bending. I like bringing that back and showing the physical description of what that meant. This is something that is a very good hallmark of writing. When you take a description and you put it out there, and then you recontextualize it in a later description to show how those moments are connected. In a lot of early writing from people who do a lot of fan fiction and who haven't quite mastered their craft yet, or people who are much better at marketing than they are at writing, I can think of a few names, looking at you, 50 Shades, you'll get a lot of descriptions where the person goes in and they say something. This is how they describe it. And then they drop it. And they do it a different way. And it doesn't actually match. It doesn't really fit with the previous description. So it's like the water was cold. 5 seconds later, it boiled. No, they don't quite match. They're different things. They're different descriptions of different properties that are unrelated and would actually imply that they're different items altogether, except we have seen throughout the narrative they're the same. Here, though, because there's a continuity of description in how things are interacting, it's actually helping with the verisimilitude, making it seem more real. This is just really good writing.
Then nodded, leaning on the clone as his vision cleared. I'll be fine. Is everyone here? Rex nodded towards Tech, who had Echo in tow. He was helping to support the augmented clone, but Echo seemed lucid. Terrified, but lucid. Crosshair stayed behind to cover Rex started. Not to freak anyone out, but this guy isn't stopping, Wrecker yelled, still unloading into the Marine and still getting nowhere with that tactic. Meanwhile,
they're basically shooting
las
lasguns, aren't they?
Making headway, step by step. He had no idea how powerful these alien weapons were and was determined not to allow any of them to defile his blessed armor.
I just realized. I even said earlier, he's doing the Jedi thing of deflecting it with his power weapon. And this is the first time Anakin's like, yeah, that is terrifying.
Wiping each blast out of the air, one after another. But these bolts were slower than bullets, and much easier to track with the naked eye.
Oh yeah,
and Hastis found
they
it
are.
almost easy to continue deflecting the blasts while advancing. Already, he was almost close enough to strike the brute who had thrown him. And then Wrecker's rifle ran out of power, and Hastis lunged. Wrecker was saved by the immediate actions of Anakin Skywalker, Captain Rex, Sergeant Hunter, and Commando Tech.
Closing
the
door?
First of whom drew Wrecker just out of the reach of Hastis' blade with a force pull, almost throwing Wrecker into himself.
Force pull push.
The other three opened fire. Tech with one sidearm, Rex with two, and Hunter with his own DC-17M, pushing the Marine back as Hastis found himself overmatched by their combined firepower. He created...
I'd like to point out this is a good example of why massed fire volleys is actually effective. Because the exact phrase is, dodge this, you filthy casual.
Distance between them, angling himself to
Also how they
retreat
took
down
down
the
most of the
hallway
Jedi.
the clones had come from, keeping them in front of him as he brought himself to a...
This is actually how the clones took down the Jedi later. Don't let them dodge a single volley. Just overwhelm them with firepower because fuck it. Eventually it'll hit and it will eventually win. And considering the Space Marine is fighting with a power weapon similar to how a lightsaber deflects bullets, this is actually a situation that clones are intentionally very good at dealing with. I mean, if they were, not just 1 on 5, it would be different, but they're surprisingly useful at this.
A manageable range, where he would be able to continue deflecting bolts with just one arm. He felt pinpricks of heat around his body during his initial retreat as several bolts slipped past his guard.
Scene from Astartes.
With the half of his lips which remained.
Yeah.
These weapons were about as powerful as lasguns and much easier to avoid.
Yeah.
He shifted his stance,
Kinda figured as much.
defending his head only as one of his hands departed his dancing blade, reaching behind himself. Blaster bolts pelted ineffectively against the ceramite plates of his power armor, and Tech's mouth gaped wide as he watched blaster bolts capable of blowing holes 2 feet around in ferrocrete simply bouncing off of this new enemy's ornate armor. Small dents and marks formed in some places, and the power armor glowed red hot in others, but all in all, it seemed to be doing nearly nothing. He began to wonder why the warrior didn't just charge them with his sword and start cutting. Then the warrior raised his free hand up into the air. What he held was large, even in his huge hand, and roughly shaped like a green, spineless pineapple.
Spineless pineapple. I hate how accurate that description is of these things. Also, I hope Anakin's on the ball because lobbing big physical objects that could do a lot of bad shit at a Jedi doesn't usually go well.
Grenade! Tech yelled,
wouldn't know
but
that
was
yet.
cut off as the explosion went off. It detonated, not on the ground and not in the air, but in the warrior's hand before he had even thrown it. The blast was massive.
The fuck?
It almost knocked them down, and Tech had to go down to one knee to continue supporting Echo. He felt his body jerk, and when the smoke cleared, groaned as he found a large piece of shrapnel jutting from the armor over his abdomen.
That is not the description I was expecting. That it had gone off in his hand? A Space Marine is not incompetent enough to overcook a grenade that they just pulled. Unless Anakin recognized it, saw the pin, and pulled it out early. That's the only thing I can think of.
Hunter was there in an instant, taking Echo's weight off of Tech as Rex came over to examine his wound. How bad is it? Tech asked, laying back against the wall. Can't tell from here. We'll have to remove your armor, and Rex started.
You're not going to do that
He's
here.
fine. Trust me, Hunter said, kneeling to extend an arm to Tech. Tech had never doubted his brother before, and he didn't start then, clasping Hunter's arm and groaning again as he was hauled up, shrapnel and all. He looked at where the warrior had been. He was still there, collapsed in a heap on the ground. His face was a bloody ruin, barely intact at all, and even his armor had been shredded in a way.
Oh, yeah, because he had exposed parts that the armor wasn't protecting him from. Yeah, that would be bad.
Their weapons had been utterly unable to accomplish. What happened? Tech asked.
Hold the pin.
Rex looked and shrugged, but Hunter smiled knowingly. That'd be me, said Crosshair, stepping out from the thinning veil of smoke and standing atop the ruined hulk of the warrior they had been fighting. Saw he was about to drop a grenade on you, he said, hefting his rifle, pride dripping off him like slime off a hut, and decided he deserved it more.
Again, if I knew anything about the Bad Batch or Star Wars Clone Wars later seasons, I would have probably saw this coming. It's like, hey, where's that guy? But this is just me being surprised because I don't know enough about the series and it's kicking me in the ass. But also, this is the funnest way to possibly say that. It's like, I'm such a good sniper. I can do it at close range with a freaking grenade that I only just perceived him pulling out. Oh, hell yes.
Tech smiled despite himself, and even Wrecker seemed oddly relieved by the support.
Oh,
You'll get plenty of congratulations once we make it, Anakin said, taking his saber from Hunter. But for now, let's keep it moving. We've got wounded. Yes, sir, Crosshair said with a lazy salute before stepping off of the corpse of the Space Marine. A corpse that wasn't quite as much of a corpse as he should have been.
Yeah, probably figured that.
Something which was horrifically revealed when the warrior's hand snapped out. His sword had been blown out of his grasp, so it was with a combat knife that he sliced into and through Crosshair's leg just under the knee.
Ow!
Crosshair didn't cry out. He just grunted like he'd been punched and twisted as he fell. He hit the ground facing the Marine, sighting down his rifle and pumped one shot into the bridge of Hastus's nose. The blast blew away the Space Marine's eyes, his entire nose, and most of the flesh around the upper half of his face, leaving his head as little more than a gory, burnt skull.
Okay, full disclosure. A Space Marine pulling that kind of feat off? Crazy. Incredibly cool. Probably a little plot armory. but also not out of the realm of possibility because they basically don't treat damage like a normal person would. A clone is a normal person that's highly trained, but also he just lost part of his leg, either cut through a good portion of it or off. I don't know which way it went, and he immediately reacted to just go, fuck you. Close range sniping. He literally no-scope killed this guy at point blank. With the freaking leg almost probably missing. This guy is scary, man. Goddamn.
Even this was impressive. What were his bones made out of? Tech wondered to himself. I've got staunch in my pack, Tech said, and Rex quickly retrieved it. Wrecker pulled Crosshair away from the Marine's body, now surely dead. Rex wasted no time in applying the staunch
the head's
to
still on,
Crosshair's
don't trust
bleeding
it.
stump, while Anakin stood over them, saber out, eyes darting as if he expected even more of those warriors to appear. Then there was a gurgling, a rasping, and then a creaking and thunk as the Marine, somehow impossibly still not dead, turned himself onto his back. Tech watched with unshakable horror and fascination. The man was laughing. The general seemed to hate that. Anakin's scowl deepening on his face as he approached the Marine, saber raised.
Yeah, Anakin
It was
doesn't like
then
being
that the
looked down on.
warrior began to speak. He was repeating something with what was left of his lips, over and over. Tech, can you translate that? Anakin asked.
Can
Tech
they yet?
blinked. Can I? Oh, right. Just one moment, General. Tech said as he activated his recording equipment and pulled out his datapad. In a few moments, he had the translation. He's saying...
The fuck? Okay, I get this, the 40K side having a translation, but how the hell is text getting a trans... Because as far as I know, I'm probably misreading this, but this specific group, while they did have a small dealing with the, I keep wanting to say tech priest, because technically he's still a space marine. The tech marine, very technically. I thought that was him using what they got already to speak the language that the Star Wars side was using. And that they've been doing the entire different languages thing, so they're not going with the old trope of everyone speaks English in space, which is what a lot of sci-fi and other fantasy races, franchises, entire shows, movies and TV shows and books do, just to make things simpler. But the fact that he would have a data file already of the language being spoken is putting a lot of credence in that previously floated idea that this is actually exiles from Star Wars going into 40K, and now they're coming back somehow. Huh. It's something I heard was floated. I wasn't sure if that was an actual thing that happened or a theory or hasn't been confirmed yet. However far down the road this show gets, I don't know. And the fact that he would have anything to draw from would imply that there's likelihood in it. Neat.
To serve the Emperor's will, that we fight and die,
He's giving himself a litany.
it is our duty. And he just keeps
Because they're a
repeating it,
very
sir.
religious chapter.
Anakin
Yeah.
nodded and opened his mouth to speak, but stopped when the Marine before them proceeded to sit up. Anakin was having none of it and moved quickly, swiping his blue blade of light and snipping off the Marine's head.
Yeah,
The
probably a
bloody
smart
thing
move.
toppled off of Hastis's shoulders and dropped onto his legs as his body remained sitting upright.
Also, I wasn't sure if it was the Space Marine's armor that was keeping his face from being the only part burned. Although Anakin did talk about how he didn't think it would be enough. Yeah, no, as much as blaster bolts do shit to armor, good old lightsabers seem to go through it really damn well.
Anakin released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding as several seconds ticked by.
Yep.
Every blaster and eye aimed on the now most certainly dead form of the Space Marine.
The funny part is if the Tech Marine was here, that very well might not have killed him. Backup brains are a thing.
All right, let's get moving.
Okay, I'm going to cut this one here because one, it was a really good point to cut at right after the action. I'm not going to say concluded, but reached a good stopping point. And also because I have to adult now. So, yeah, that's the thing I got to go do, unfortunately. More importantly, though, just, dear God, man. This is the fight I was waiting for. And of course, 8 episodes in, we had aborted fights where we saw things had started. We knew that they were happening. This isn't the first confrontation technically shown in the series, but the first one we've seen in detail is with Anakin freaking Skywalker. This is the kind of thing that I kind of appreciate, waiting until the main named character who you know is going to survive, because they're not going to kill him off right away happens, but also showing that it is a verifiable threat. That just a random battle brother, not even the sergeant, but just one of the battle brothers with a sword was the one running in there, and he gave them a run for their money. It shows the power discrepancy. And even though the Star Wars side, even though Anakin won, he needed help. And it was still a close thing if he hadn't, gone away from the traditional Jedi hyper defensive, fast agility, and seeing the future fighting style, which is honestly bullshit in its own right. This is a good way to show power level, saying we can match you, but it's hard, and we need to play our game A side every time. It's just well done. And even with some of my issues at narrative choices in the writing choices, they're being done well. It may not be my preference, but they're being done well. It's not breaking the narrative. It's just something that I have issues with as more of just a writing major myself. Not badly done, though. So overall, I really want to see what happens next. And if I didn't have to go somewhere, I would sit here right now and watch that and actually just... You have no idea how tempting it is to say, I'll just be late and go watch the rest of it. I want to. I really want to, but I know I can't. So all the same, if you haven't already, link below, original video. Hit it up. And when you're done, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let's get started. Why did I say let's get started? Wow, I am so used to saying that at the beginning of videos, I forgot we're ending the video because I did a Freudian slip and I really want to jump right into the second half. God damn it me. Hit it up. I'll see you guys next week. I'll probably record this way sooner, but I just really need to see what happens, man. This is good. This is really good. I'll see you guys later. Adios.